I understand the mindset. I understand where he's coming from. But bro, at some point, you have to stop pretending like we're having a reasonable disagreement.
Today, we're covering the popular news outlet The Young Turks being exposed by Francesca Fiorentini and Kyle Kalinske. Francesca Fiorentini is calling out Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian for selling out and being bought out by
Something snapped.
Well,
And they're
speaking
like,
of that,
oh, it's time to wake up.
well, not everyone is awake. Before I let you go, I did just want to ask you about this to piggyback off of the Guantanamo stuff and some of the disagreements I had with Cenk about it. Cenk Uygur of TYT is now tweeting that he is going to go to Dallas right now. This was last night to talk to Dr. Phil and James Poulos on The Blaze. You know why? Because we need to talk to each other and begin to understand each other. The powerful have driven a wedge.
Oh, I
between
understand
us.
the right. I understand them. I certainly understand them.
Now, I read this that was like, I'm going. I don't know how this is going to turn out, Kyle, but this is the kind of stuff that
I do.
makes me makes me want to die inside. Look, it's okay to talk to the right. You and I have been on Piers Morgan. We've debated. Obviously, Cenk goes on Piers Morgan all the time. But like the idea that we're going to sit down and be like, how can we come together to decide who to deport and who not to deport? This is such a waste of time.
You know, Cenk's analysis on this reminds me a lot of my very sweet, very not connected to politics grandmother. You know, she's a wonderful woman, but she's, definitely MAGA coded. And as my sister tried to explain to her the dangers of Donald Trump being president and how people close to her that she works with are not going to have access to visas that allow them to stay in the country. And my grandma's response is, oh, no, she has a great story. That's not going to happen to her. Oh, no, don't worry. Everything's going to be fine for that lady. Don't worry. It's the other bad people that we're getting out of here, right? And then you have Dr. Phil, who's like chomping at the bit to go out and get in on these deportation ICE raids. So, like, he's ready to do the cruelty. He'll probably show up in Missouri and start collecting bounties as soon as he'll start riding around with the big old Stetson cowboy hat and just participating in mass cruelty efforts. But don't worry, if you sit down with him, I'm sure he'll convince him that.
So here we have Francesca Fiorentini calling out Cenk Uygur, and she's sort of, her and Kyle are seeing it on the same side to where they've gone to media pundits such as, Piers Morgan, more right-leaning shows to defend themselves. But it seems like Cenk Uygur, from TYT, the Young Turks, he is wanting to make negotiations with terrorists. It seems like he wants to negotiate with terrorists as far as saying, hey, look, I want to see it from your guys' story, and I can't wait for you guys to indoctrinate me for an hour so I can go spread it to my audience. It's really what it seems like he's saying in a very
these people have a nice story and everything will be right as rain again. And that's what Cenk intends to do.
Yeah, I just don't understand why this can't be at least a debate, like for the sake of us, the viewer.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Actually have to watch this shit. Like at least like get a bit spicy. At least bring that kind of Piers Morgan explosive quality that we all know have within you. This just sounds boring. The only people that are going to watch this are just right-wing boomers who want to watch propaganda, and to them, like, Cenk is the furthest left person they can now be exposed to because he will pander to them. So it just seems boring and not really something that will ultimately benefit the Young Turks either. We've already seen this experiment play out multiple times. When Cenk goes on a show to pander to MAGA like this, it doesn't result in any of those people subscribing to TYT. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and I have a question. What could you possibly not know about Dr. Phil that you need to like fill in the blank on here? Like, what are the big questions? Like, where's your summer home in Israel? Like, I don't know what Dr. Phil has like. He leaves it all out on the field. He's not mysterious.
Cenk and Anna have a rich history of collaborating with Dr. Phil in their
crusade
against identity politics. He was on the show a few months back where they were talking about how the only way for the left to win is for them to combat woke. However, Dr. Phil didn't tell them that he was a Republican that loved Donald Trump.
It's fuck. I mean, this is just such a missed moment. I've got more to say, but we can keep watching.
And he's doing it. I feel like Cenk is doing this to troll people who, again, he's like, because Cenk always says, you know, oh, you're calling them Nazis, which we did. We earlier were just like talking about how Elon Musk is a fucking Nazi.
Because he did a Nazi salute multiple times, and he tweeted openly anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. This doesn't come out of nowhere. This doesn't come out of nowhere. Lefties don't wake up out of bed and go, oh, let me call everybody a Nazi. No, it's, oh, there is evidence of Nazism. You are a Nazi. That's
Right.
how that works.
But where's that gotten us, Kyle? Where's that gotten us?
No, I got a lot to say about this, because I had the philosophy of build bridges, change minds, hold their hands and walk them through it. I'm the guy that had that philosophy and embodied it the first term of Trump in 2016. I'm the guy who was on Joe Rogan's show 5 or 6 times, holding his hand like a fucking toddler and walking him through basic left-wing arguments. I was the reach across the aisle guy, right? You know what that got me?
Make sure to like.
Fucking Joe Rogan endorsing Donald Trump, having him on his podcast and letting him lie to his face repeatedly for 3 hours straight, where he said things like, I never said lock her up about Hillary Clinton. I never said that. It was other people that said that.
Like, even Rogan knows how to fact check that one. Like, even Rogan knows that
He didn't. He actually didn't.
Right, exactly.
So I understand the mindset. I understand where he's coming from. But bro, at some point, you have to stop pretending like we're having reasonable disagreements. These are not reasonable. It's not interesting to debate whether or not it was a good idea for Trump to sign an executive order that raises drug prices, or whether or not it was a good idea for him to sign an executive order that filled the swamp and said, all my cabinet, no more anti-corruption rules for them. It's not reasonable to say 1,500 January 6ers were pardoned, including violent ones, including ones that assaulted cops, including ones that diddle kids. Like, it's not
right.
To sit across from these people and basically give them, like, it gives them cover. It gives them cover to pretend, oh, yes, I'm one of the good ones on the left and I'm having a reasonable conversation with you. The reasonable conversation is not a conversation. It's a debate where you pummel them into the ground repeatedly.
Exactly. And they respect you for that. I do think that they respect you for that, when you can actually win the debate, or in my case, just kind of like make fun of.
That's a really good point. The respect, like, they would respect you more if you came and fought, as opposed to like came and like bent over.
Oh, 100%, because it actually shows that you believe what you say. I think that part of the problem with these guys that don't understand the long-term pivot to the right, because there are ways to, you know, over time be sophisticated in your pivot to the right. Like, Tim Pool started out making content about the financial crash and, you know, all this weird stuff, and then he was like, actually, it's really easy to get your bread buttered over here, runs right to the right, becomes bigger than ever. However, if you do it poorly, if you do it kind of dumb, like Jimmy Dore or Dave Rubin, or now like Cenk Uygur is doing, your luster wears off. Gavin calls it the sugar high, right? The token effect of you being a left winger that agrees with me, that is not something that is going to last. That is fleeting, right? And
yes, it's clear that Cenk is going with the intention of wanting to make amends, to see their side of the story so he can get a better argument to speak to them, and, you know, maybe bridge a gap between the left and the right. Like, that may be his hero story, what he tells himself in the mirror. But, you know, as far as what actually happens, and, you know, if you guys are watching this vid right now, just try this with anybody. Go talk to any conservative and appear to have a good conversation with them. You're not going to have an actual conversation with them about, you know, you're not going to be able to change their mind whatsoever about, you know, the cult of Trump. You cannot do that. They've been indoctrinated. They are in a cult. It's the cult mindset. You can look up, it's like a totalitarian type of set. Even though the right is a bunch of contradictions in of itself, that's what keeps you in it. There's no actual reasoning to it. So the only way to talk to somebody is to get them to maybe come about something that happened to them. What causes them? What causes them pain in their everyday life? Which causes them to eventually get swayed into this cult. That's how they bought into it in the first place. But wanting to find out their...
Once you're no longer a lefty that agrees with me, you just become like a random ass pundit that's laundering people's reputation. And you don't have an actual base of people to watch you anymore. So you know, kind of, again, lose your luster.
Yeah. I also agree, you know, with the idea of talking to right wingers. This is something we've discussed at length, but actually one thing, Griffin, that I've really appreciated about Breaking Points is some of the like focus groups they do where they actually are talking to normal ass real voters, or the one video you put together where you talk to people who voted for both AOC and Donald Trump. That was fascinating. And I do really think there should be more of those kind of people's, you know, perspective included in the programming of political content, even online, because we do need to reckon with it and we do need to understand it, and we can't just shame those people, and we can't just ignore the way they feel either, because it is a significant, majority of the country at this point that does. But I just think that Dr. Phil isn't the same thing as that. You're talking to a propagandist. You're talking to someone who is responsible for poisoning the mind of those regular people. He's not a regular guy. So I just don't really see what.
There we have it, you guys. We have Kyle Kalinske and Francesca Fiorentini, as well as the Vanguard with their commentary, providing how inefficient it is to talk to conservatives in general. It's definitely, I would definitely say that at some point there's no breaking someone out of that cult by having a political discussion about it. That it's not a political thing, because it's not really based on politics anymore. Why we're going towards fascism or towards this cult. What I'm saying is that it's inefficient to go on these shows. They're saying that it's inefficient to go on these shows because they just end up getting if at worst it's like leftist gets pwned by that type of shit, and then at worst it's them not even talking, not even saying anything really, not even sticking up for leftist values. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's another day in the progressive way.